Howdy, guys. We are working on our shapes. Week 5 shapes in architecture. This will be real fast, so bear with me. Just make sure you pay attention so you'll be able to pass the quiz. Shapes in architecture. So, lesson 5 introduced simple geometric and freeform shapes that are found in architecture. Architects use geometric and freeform shapes to design buildings. We know from our last lesson that complex geometric shapes are shapes that
Think
are
about the
made.
doors and windows in your home. What shapes are they? What shape is the roof of your home?
Thank you for interrupting me. What I was going to say is, we know that the complex geometric shapes are shapes that are made with regular shapes added together, and they form complex geometric shapes. And freeform shapes are shapes that are not geometric shapes or not complex geometric shapes, like blobs, like shapes of people, shapes of animals, like a heart. That's like a complex geometric shape. I mean, that's a freeform shape. That's not. No amount of shapes that you put together can make some of those shapes. Okay, so in this lesson, you're going to learn how to identify geometric and freeform shapes in buildings in architecture design. You can, for a creative expression, you can draw a building from observation using geometric and freeform shapes. And for art, history, and culture, you're going to identify and compare the use of geometric and freeform shapes in paintings of different types of buildings by two different artistes. Voila. So we're going to look at this two different artworks on these pages. Both of these pictures are paintings of architecture, buildings. Both show geometric shapes being used for windows and others on the building.
Let's take a close look at the two works of art.
So, do the buildings in these paintings appear to be created at the same time? Let's think about the culture. Okay, so when we look at this picture right here, okay, that doesn't really tell us when it is. We can look at this, however, and tell that it was painted in 1927 by an American artist, Edward Hopper. Okay, not a lot of people. Let me tell you something about Edward Hopper. Edward Hopper is a very famous American artist, but all of his paintings don't really have any people in it, doesn't have any personality. The colors are very depressing looking. All of his paintings are like that, and that's just his style of artwork. And then if you look at this one right here, we could tell by our context clues is that, well, without looking at the date, 1730, if you zoomed in on this, you could tell that it's older by what the clothing that the people are wearing. People do not wear stuff like that around town unless it's Halloween. Okay, so by the way, this is in Italy, and it's the clock tower in the Piazza San Marco. If you go and look up the picture now, the square looks the same. The only thing is going to look different are the people. The buildings are the same. So you can see the different architecture. Look at the different style that the artist made to design these buildings. Look at that. They created a half round window, circles in it. Beautiful. It's beautiful about this. If you were to go in live and this person is that it's just, the architecture is beautiful. The way that it's built has columns intermixed with half round windows, little round portico windows, some interesting designs like the little statues up here. You can't see it, but if you were to go on Google later on and look at it, you would be able to see all the different things that are in real life. You can see a picture of it. And then they have these carved relief pictures of different things up here. There's even a bell with two men ringing it up there. And church. And then there's a huge clock tower because they didn't have watches. They didn't have anything back then. And on top of the clock, you can't see, but it's like a cuckoo clock. When it would ring a certain hours, the doors would open and there were little statues that would come out and it would make music. Very cool. But on top of that, you have the different styles, rectangles, triangles, ovals, half rounds, or we call them arches. Oh, oh, look at this one. A triangle. It's like a cone. And there's a statue on top of there. be very cool for you to look this up and submit this picture for extra credit, or if you want to just see, so we can see what it looks like in this from 1730 to 2000, 2020, 2000. Scapino's trapped in a time warp. So, study both works of art, which we just did, to look at the different shapes. We saw all the different shapes, and this one right here of a hopper, here you go, the same types of windows. The cool thing about this building is that it's round on one side, like an arch on one side and flat on the back side. Okay, we see lots of rectangles. Nothing too exciting in this picture, but if you look at the different windows, they also have those round portico windows, triangular details. These are little like glass windows, like a like atrium. So you go downstairs and you can see like a glass light, and you can see where the light shines inside of it. Okay, they also have little columns on the outside of the buildings. The square itself, triangles. These are stairs, and they have like some of the ones on the bottom have little things on it. But for the most part, the rooftops, the rectangles, and triangles. The most interesting thing I would say in the architecture in this particular square would probably be this building right here. It says the city. It doesn't say which city though. So some of you guys may have been here. You might know which city it is. Okay, we know where the rectangles are. I pointed those out. Circles. Did I miss something? Nope. Okay.
How can you use shapes to draw a building?
¿Cómo pueden usar las formas para dibujar un edificio?
Okay, so let's learn about architecture. Architecture is the art of designing and planning a building. So when an artist creates a design of a building that he wants an engineer to construct or build for him, he creates a design. So the architecture is the person who designs how pretty it will look, where the windows, what kind of windows, what shape of the windows, what it looks like aesthetically. Okay, the engineer is the one who gets together with the builders, and he decides, how is he going to make it stand up? What material is he going to use to make this architecture's dream come true? Is it going to be safe if people go on it? Is the roof going to be not going to collapse? So, and they do all the math and stuff like that to make sure that it works. And then they write up their plans, and then they give it to the construction people, and they follow the plans and build it. Okay, so but the architect is the person who designs how the design will look. So you saw examples of architecture in the artwork on the previous pages. An architect is the person who plans and designs the buildings. Architects use geometric and freeform shapes in their design. Here are some examples of some interesting types of architecture that you will find. So you could practice drawing if you want to. Here's an example of a young lady who drew her school, and she was just illustrating with a black and white the different architectural elements of her school. If you get a chance to go and look at some of the architecture, if you go to Google and you type in architecture of Dubai, Dubai, that is a city down in the Middle East, and they have the most wonderful types of architecture. You can find the cool architectures in a lot of the different big cities, and each city is famous for different types of architecture. So you think about New York, you think about the Twin Towers, you think about the all those are the things you think about. In Washington D.C., you think about the White House, the Capitol building, you think about the Washington Monument, you think about the Jefferson Memorial. When you go to St. Louis, you think about the St. Louis Arch. Some types of architecture could be a bridge. You go to San Francisco, the San Francisco Bridge. You go to Paris, the architecture would be like the Eiffel Tower. If you go to India, a famous architecture, um, the Taj Mahal. So every country that you go to, they have really, really different types of architecture, and architects like to design different types of buildings that that are very stylish. Okay, so you can create, by the way, uh, some buildings using freeform and geometric shapes if you want to, and submit it to me if you'd like. So you should be able to describe the shapes you use in your drawings. Where did you place your freeform shapes in your buildings? and geometric shapes, how could you completely change the appearance of a building with different shapes? It's like whether you're playing with Legos, right? You can make a house out of your Legos, and depending on the different shapes that you use, the different Lego pieces that you use, it's going to look different every time. Change the windows. So basically, drawing, an architect is basically creating. Sometimes when they get done with their drawings, they actually make the models and they construct a little like a mini model so that you can see what it looks like. But you could totally do that with your Legos. If you want to make a house out of your Legos using your different geometric shapes and you want to take a picture of it and send it to me, that would be totally cool. I would love that. I would enjoy that. So make sure you take the quiz that goes along with this lesson to show that you understand what an architect does and that you understand what the difference between geometric shapes and the difference between them and freeform shapes. Again, freeform shapes meaning shapes that we don't recognize and don't have names, like blobs, splatters, hearts, shapes of people, shapes of dogs, shapes of anything that's not a square, rectangle, or a triangle. Have a great day, folks.